This is January 12th, 2021, and we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm here in Southern California. And during a pandemic or any time where we don't have access, a researcher doesn't have access to subjects, it makes it very difficult to try and gather data. And as you've heard me say in other videos, we don't release anything until we have a minimum of 40 subjects. Now, thanks to our Wright balance professionals around the world, we have 60 plus subjects. I made a call about a month ago and emails asking select Wright balance professionals to test what I'm about to show you. So it shows up in 60 subjects. It is a significant breakthrough for us because, as you're going to see, it eliminates the need for stance width. And there are a lot of ramifications, but I just want to get this video to you so you can see, and we'll come back and talk about stance width, trail arm delivery, as a result of the carrying angle changes and a number of other things, and how do you decide which power spot to use. So I'm going to take, you can see that, by the way, that I'm very level. So if you're going to use this test, you want to know how to reverse the process. So you'll notice my shoulders are level, and my hips are level, and my hands hang the same in every stance width. So if you look at me in the context of planes of motion, so I'm going to show you here in a second from the side. If I take a step forward, you'll notice how square my hips stay in this position, loading into that front leg. And if I stand here and take a step back, you'll notice no matter where I go, I am going to have a level hip line. I've eliminated all drag. My freedom of motion in all directions is there. And it's so very important that you have freedom of motion for a variety, no matter what your age or what you're doing. Now, I can disrupt this entire process by taking any object. I can take a golf club, hold the shaft, put my hands together. I have now created a closed kinetic chain. The bar is horizontal or parallel to the ground. I'm going to add knee flex. I'm going to roll my shoulders toward my chest, and I'm going to hold it, take a couple of deep breaths. And then I'm going to stand tall, and I'm going to lean back, bring the bar toward my chest, pinch my shoulder blades together, and another couple of deep breaths. So, now you'll notice that, we put the bar back on here, but you'll notice that when I stand tall, I have completely disrupted the symmetry of my core. You'll notice my right shoulder is down, my left hand turns in much more than my right, and my right hip is higher. I put my thumbs on my hip bones anteriorly at crest. You can see how much higher my right hand is. You'll notice my right shoulder is lower. So now I'm going to show you the express exercise. And up to this point, we have said we want you to, if you're going to use the express, I have personally said, if you're an upper core player, don't do it. That is totally incorrect now. We've made some discoveries. I'm going to show you how and why here in a moment. So, in fact, let me go to, this is a standard grip size. Okay, this is a standard grip size. So I'm going to take this standard grip size. Let me show you, by the way, from the side before I get into all of this, how my hips have rotated as well. And if I take that step forward now, my hips are rotated. If I take that step back, my hips are rotated. So I have asymmetry in every plane of motion. Also, not only is it here, if I add knee flex, I have it as well. So adding knee flex is a measurement of standing tall, measurement in rotation of the pelvis is a measurement of the back of the core, adding knee flex measurement of the front of the core on the transverse plane or horizontal plane. So in front of me, I have 9 stance widths. Now these stance widths and a 0 point. These stance widths came as a result of the body measurements. So if you're watching this for the first time and you want access to these numbers, you can see one of our Wright Balance professionals. If you go to wrightbalance.com, spelled with a W, you'll find a list of our professionals in Europe, in Asia, and here in the United States, Mexico, Venezuela, Ecuador. So we have Wright Balance professionals all over the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on number 1, stance width, which is my lower core, and I'm going to do the express exercise. I'm going to create a closed kinetic chain, 10-finger grip, hands touching, and I'm going to do 2 deep breaths. And I'm going to move through this quickly, so in the interest of time, but when you're doing this, the more breaths you take, the longer what I'm going to show you is going to last. And the key here is, what size of the grip am I using? And that's stance width number 1, stance width number 2, which is between the navel and the pelvic floor. And stance width number 3, which is just below the navel. And stance width number 4, which is just above the navel. And stance width number 5, which is between the lower sternum and the navel. As I do this, I'm pinching my shoulder blades together as I go back. It stands with number 6, which is just below the lower sternum. And I roll my shoulders forward toward my sternum. Forward, and again, pinch shoulder blades together as I pull this back. You always want to have this shaft in a vertical plane when you're doing this exercise. You saw what happened when I held it horizontally. That's 7, just above the lower sternum. And 8, which is between the lower sternum and the neck. And 9, which is neck, upper shoulder region. Now, a couple of things just happened. What you'll notice is that my hands hang the same in every stance width. It's what you saw earlier. So no matter where I go, look at the amount of internal rotation. You can look at between my thumb and index finger. Before, when I disrupted my core, this left hand turned in quite a bit. Now they're going to be the same everywhere. And if I were to show you my carrying angle, I don't know if you remember how wide it was earlier. Notice how shallow it is now. There's a reason for that, I'll tell you in a moment. But you'll notice that ease of rotation. If you check this, stay flat-footed. And now if I go back to where I was earlier, I can't turn. So this is my angle of range of motion, and we'll be showing you how many times it shows up in the golf swing. And shows up in every activity, whether you're walking, running, whatever you're doing. So notice the angle, and notice the ease, again, ease of rotation. So, if I take that step forward now, my hips remain square, and that's simply because I've done the express, I've created that closed kinetic chain. No matter what size instrument baseball bat, golf club, a cane, no matter what I hold, I'm going to create that. I'm going to create that symmetry, shoulders leveling, hips leveling, elimination of all pelvic rotation, no drag stepping forward or stepping back. Very important no matter what you're doing. But in golf now, this is what research has shown. We'll finally get to it here. If I hold this baseball grip, notice that my hips remain absolutely square. Absolutely square. And if I go into my setup, you'll notice how square my hips are. What happens is, well, let me show you why you want the baseball grip. If I have a good grip, you'll notice that my hips remain square. And that's my golf grip right here. If I get a little more on top, what we would refer to as being stronger, you'll notice that my hips rotate. So when you just in testing this and looking at it, hold that baseball grip. A couple of things you'll notice. You may be able to see it from there. My weight just went to the balls of my feet in this setup. So that is going to determine how I'm going to use the ground. So if I'm using a standard grip size, for me, it's all relative to your hand size. If I'm using this standard grip size, I default to this as my grip size. My weight goes to the balls of my feet, and as I swing through, you've seen we've had some other videos on how we use the ground that moved me to an upper core player, as did this angle is also representative of an upper core player. We'll measure this in another video, because I just want to get this research out to you right now. But this is about 161, 2, or 3 right here in this angle. That is an upper core player. So gripping this club, I go into my setup, you'll notice how square my hips stay. And if you watch, you'll feel it when you do this. So try some different grip sizes if you have them. I'm going to show you a very large grip size here in a moment. So when I do this, my weight is on the balls of my feet. So when I turn back, as I come through, my hips are going to stall, because I cannot clear my hips on the balls of my feet. So I'm going to rise, and then I'm going to rotate through. The club head's going to pull me through. That is an upper core sequencing, upper core ground use, ground reaction force use. The upper core player uses rotational and vertical ground force. So I'm able to rotate fine, and as I come through, I'm going to rise. I'm going to need to rise. So let's go back to this. You know, I've done this quite a bit, what I'm about to do. I'm going to disrupt my core again. And you can try it at home. I don't know how many times you're able to disrupt the core, but my observations are this. That is the research. Bottom line is, whatever size grip you use, when you do the express, it defaults to your grip size. That becomes your grip size. So if you're trying to clear your hips and you're using a grip that's too small, it is not going to happen. I'm going to show you a larger grip in a moment here. So just know it's much more than, well, I just need to do the exercises using my 9 right balance stance widths. It is and it isn't. You want to be, if you're, depending on how you want to use your body, depending on where your strength tested. My strength tested in my lower core years ago. I am the pelvic floor. As you've heard me say, I played baseball, I pitched. External shoulder rotation was extremely important. So let's go back for just a second and I'll show you why I just moved to that. So here's my amount of external shoulder rotation. I have none. It's the same amount of angle I have when I'm measuring my carrying angle. Almost always the same. That's it. So if I bring this elbow straight down and turn, my elbow is just right at or just behind my hip, right here. That is a trail arm delivery of an upper core player. You'll notice where my hand, let me show you from this side. So if I test it, bring it down, and I'm not trying to throw my hand on top, okay? Trail arm delivery here. So as I start down, that sets what E.A. Tischler and Mike Adams for years called a side cover or on top grip. From right balance, we see that as a characteristic of that upper core player. So, when I get in my setup now, this thigh angle is always the same, okay? So there's my setup. Notice if you look carefully, see the angle of my forearm here, you'll notice it's the same angle as my thigh. And from here I have maximum rotation. If I change to a little taller position, I just lost my rotation. I can't turn any more than that. I changed my thigh angle. So this is your angle, once again, of range of motion through the body. Now this is a grip size. Bryson DeChambeau uses very large grips, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he also uses the Jumbo Max. This is an older Jumbo Max. I've had it for a few years in our lab, but it's an extra large. Okay, so if I'm going to use, actually I can use this to disrupt my core. Remember, holding horizontal. And after 24 hours, this will default immediately. My carrying angle is now what it normally is, which is 151. My right shoulder just dropped, my right hip just elevated, and my hips are once again rotated as a result of that core disruption. So you're able to disrupt your core now. You can see how much rotation I have. If I take that step forward, take that step back, I still have rotation. And that is because I've just disrupted my core. I've lost all symmetry. Now, what I want to do is show you now with a different grip size. Let's go to the larger grip. So, with the larger grip, same thing. So, the point earlier was that smaller grip gave me a very shallow carrying angle. Right here. My normal carrying angle is 151, and that's going to be, I'm going to default to that after I disrupt my core. So you can put yourself back to normal, but out of symmetry, and then understanding if you do the optimization, which you do not, right balance optimization, you don't use a club. You can use, but whatever instrument, whatever you put in your hands is going to set your carrying angle, is going to set your posture, going to set your range of motion. So I'm going to go now through the express using this very large grip. I'm going to run through this quickly, taking one breath instead of two. It'll change, it won't last as long. What you'll find is, and you really want to hold it, I've done this so much, if you don't hold it long enough, it's not going to take. And I'm on 4. And 5 stands with number 5. And 6. And 7. And 8. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do 9. Because there's another facet to this I want you to see. If I miss one of these numbers, one of these stance widths, my core is not going to change. So I haven't done 9. You see I still have rotation. If I take that step forward, I still have it. If I look at you head on, you'll notice the internal rotation of my left hand and how my right shoulder is down. I can feel that, and my right hip is up. So I'm going to do the last one, 9. I have that strip going 90 degrees both ways here. So you see now that I'm very square, no matter where I go, and I can now take that step forward, take that step back. If I don't do all 9 stance widths, this is not going to work. So trying to randomly do stance widths, if you're watching this video, does not work. Now, this is a very large grip, so no matter where I go now, look at the extreme carrying angle I have. And I can test this. Right arm is forward rotation. Left arm is the rotation to my right. I want to stay flat-footed as you check this. If I get very shallow purposely, I cannot turn. So my natural angle now just changed dramatically. My power is all the way over here. In the last, it would have been up here. Now, simply because I'm changing this grip size. And if I go to, same line here, any setup, notice, I don't know if you could tell before, but now it just moved my weight over the center of my arches. So the larger the grip, for me, relative to hand size, the easier it is to clear your hips. I'm in a lower core setup, lower core power angle, and now when I turn through, I'm going to clear my hips much more easily. Try it over the balls of the feet, which is where that smaller grip, and try and turn through. You don't even need a club. Take your hand and you'll notice that you change direction. Then move your weight over the center of the arches, which is where this grip size puts me. Notice how easy it is to clear. So trail arm delivery, as you saw earlier, this trail arm delivery, and if I had known this when I was playing baseball many, many years ago, 50 years ago, we would do anything as an athlete to improve performance, but you have to be careful. I had this conversation with kinesiologist Jay Johnson. Actually, Jay led us into this discovery, and if you look at the certification, you'll see the acknowledgement to Jay. Jay's in the Chicago area. He's been one of our Wright Balance associates since 2017. And we talked the other day about the importance of understanding if your body is not ready if you don't have the strength, muscle strength, shoulder girdle strength, hip strength, lower body strength to perform, and we can engineer the body and go in a lot of different places now. We'll talk about that in other videos to come. But you have to have strength. And I do not believe in the shotgun approach to conditioning. We're now able to isolate through our Core 360 and strengthen one plane of motion at a time. And down the road, we'll be showing you all of that. So please, and as I said, it reminded me, as a kid, at 20 years old, trying to make it at the highest level, if I knew I could I pitched. The more external shoulder rotation I had, the more velocity I'm going to have on my fastball. And I had a pretty decent one, but I have just increased from 151 to about 145. I've moved about 5-6 degrees. And 5 to 6 degrees greater angle is pretty significant. I've also just changed, here's my posture. And you'll see that if, again, you look at this angle, it's parallel. And if you look at coming here, look where I go. I have that under delivery. This is the trail arm delivery. And that external shoulder rotation allows me to get here, which is where I need to be to clear the hips, coming full circle. So, bottom line, research is done. Whatever grip size you use to do your express exercise, it will set your power angle, it'll set your posture subsequently, and it defaults to your grip size. So work with your Wright Balance professional now. This is all very, very new. This is the first public disclosure of this content. I will say that where we're headed and what we're looking at, tennis racket, using your tennis racket. Our Wright Balance professional, Matthew Paradis, in Quebec City, Quebec, Canada. Talked about playing golf in the morning and using his golf club to do his express, coming back and playing squash in the afternoon, using his squash racket to do the express. Please remember, we still need to make sure that we have the body area strength to support whatever changes we're making. So please be aware of that. But now we're able to biomechanically engineer changes that will change performance.